शारदां चन्द्रमौलीशं रत्नगर्भगणेश्वरं शङ्करं चर्ष्यशृङ्गेशं तुङ्गां लोकगुरून् भजे। मङ्गलं दिशतु मे विनायकः, मङ्गलं दिशतु मे सरस्वती, मङ्गलं दिशतु मे महेश्वरी, मङ्गलं दिशतु मे सदाशिवः। शास्त्राब्धिपारदृश्वानं सङ्गहीनं तपोनिधिं भजे श्रीभारतीतीर्थगुरुं भद्रोघदायकम्। विधुशेखरभारत्याश्रयामि चरणाम्बुजं प्रज्ञानमकरन्देच्छु शिष्यभ्रमरसंश्रयम्। विश्वं मायामयत्वेन रूपितं यत् प्रबोधतः विश्वं च यत् स्वरूपं तं वार्तिकाचार्यमाश्रये। Offering my Sashtanga Pranamas to the Pada Padmas of the Ubhay Jagadgurus. On today, this auspicious occasion of the Jayanti of the first Peethadhipati of the Dakshinamnaya Sringeri Sharada Peetha, Shri Sureshwaracharya, it is my fortune that we have had the opportunity today to speak a few words about the great Acharya, discuss his teachings through his texts in the presence of the Jagadguru. As we know, 12 centuries ago, when Bhagavatpadacharya incarnated for the protection of Sanatana Dharma, he established 4 Peethas in the 4 corners of this Bharata Bhumi. Therein he installed his 4 primary Shishyas, Sureshwaracharya, Hastamalakacharya, Padmapadacharya and Totakacharya. The names of these 4 Shishyas speak to their Mahima as well. The name Totakacharya was acquired by the Shishya named Giri, when through the grace of the Jagadguru, through the grace of Bhagavatpada, he obtained the 14 branches of knowledge and thereby composed a text called Shrutisara Samudharana in the meter Totaka. Thus, he obtained the name Totakacharya. In the same way, Padmapadacharya, his Guru Bhakti was such that when Bhagavatpadacharya called him from across the Ganga, without hesitating for a single second, he immediately set foot on the flow of the river. Recognizing his Guru Bhakti, Ganga Mata, Ganga Devi ensured that a lotus bloomed under each step that he took, thus earning him the name Padmapada. In the same way, the Shishya named Hastamalakacharya, he was a boy, a young boy, an 8-year-old boy, who appeared very dull. Yet, when Bhagavatpadacharya asked him, "Who are you? And why do you appear to be dull?" his response was nothing less than the essence of the Upanishads. Seeing that such a young child had obtained such great clarity on the Upanishads, just as if we held a small fruit in the palm of our hand, it would appear very clear to us. Seeing that the child too had similar clarity on the Upanishads, he obtained the name Hasta Amalaka Acharya. So in this way, the 3 main Shishyas of Bhagavatpada have names that are indicative of the greatness, the tapas, the knowledge that they possessed. However, when it comes to Sureshwaracharya, there is no particular story that explains why he got the name Sureshwaracharya. It follows, however, therefore, that he is Sureshwara. The name Sureshwara in the Samskrita Bhasha, we see applied mainly to Indra as the leader of the Devatas, but perhaps here, more relevantly, to Brahma. Brahmatmabhus Surajyeshtha Parameshthe Pitamaha. Thus goes the Amarakosha. Surajyeshtha, the eldest, the foremost among the Devatas. This is a name that is particular to Brahma. So recognizing that the Sureshwara, the Mandana Mishra in his Purvashrama, the husband of Ubhaya Bharati, was indeed the incarnation of Chaturmukha Brahma, Bhagavatpada, after giving him sannyasa, after defeating him in debate and giving him sannyasa, bestowed upon him the Yoga Patta Sureshwaracharya. So that is how we got this name that we remember to this day. He was known also as the Vartikakara. Shivakumarji has explained the meaning of that in the prologue. When a great Acharya writes a Bhashya, it is necessary that the Bhashya be explained for the seekers to come. Such a text is called a Vartika. Those who write Vartikas have a particular responsibility upon them. Uktanukta duruktanam chinta yatra pravartate tam grantham vartikam prahuhu vartikagnya manishinaha. An entity, an individual who desires to write a Vartika for a Bhashya needs to discuss three things mainly. Ukta, Anukta and Durukta. Ukta, whatever has been told in the Bhashya must be explained. Anukta, something that has not been told in the Bhashya, but if added would give clarity. Such topics also have to be discussed. Durukta, anything, Durukta does not usually mean something that is wrong, that should not be applied to a Bhashya. So here the word Durukta means something that is difficult to understand. It is not that it has been left out, that would be Anukta, but something that has been told which is tough to understand, something that is a bit complicated. That is a Durukta. The Vartikakara has the responsibility of explaining all three of these facets towards the Bhashya. So Bhagavatpada, amongst his Shishyas, there too amongst his four main Shishyas, found that Sureshwaracharya was uniquely eligible for undertaking the composition of the Vartikas. Because Sureshwaracharya, first and foremost, was a scholar par excellence. He had studied from Kumarila Bhatta. He had studied Purvamimamsa from Kumarila Bhatta, renowned as one of the greatest Shastra Vidwans of all time. Thereafter, he had performed intense karmas for a very long time with the utmost Shraddha, thereby ensuring that he had obtained great Chitta Shuddhi, which is why we just saw in the Ashtottara Shatanama as well, Sakrit Shravana Samprapta Sakshatkaraya Namaha. Sureshwaracharya had such Chitta Shuddhi that Bhagavatpada only had to teach him the essence of the Upanishads once. Through that itself, he was able to not only understand the teachings of the Upanishads, but bring it to realization as well, bring it to experience as well. So such was his Chitta Shuddhi. So seeing that Sureshwaracharya was so equipped, Bhagavatpadacharya ordered him to write Vartikas for two Upanishads. For Bhagavatpada's Svashakha Upanishad, which was the Taittiriya Upanishad, and for Sureshwaracharya's Svashakha, the Upanishad of Sureshwaracharya's Svashakha, which was the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So the Vartikas of both of these Upanishad Bhashyas are available. Besides this, Bhagavatpada has composed a Prakarana Grantha called Panchikarana, wherein how the Sukshma Tanmatras have become this gross universe that we see amongst us. This process has been described in the text called Panchikarana. Sureshwaracharya has composed a Vartika for that as well. And there was also an independent text composed by Sureshwaracharya named Naishkarmya Siddhi. The word Naishkarmya Siddhi is found in the Gita mainly. Naishkarmya Siddhim Paramam Sanyasena Adhigacchati. So this word called Naishkarmya Siddhi, how to rid oneself of the bondage of karma. This process has been written in that text. And there has been one more text composed by Sureshwaracharya named Manasollasa. This is a Vyakhya for a stotra of Bhagavatpadacharya, the Dakshinamurti stotra, which is very famous today as Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namedam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. This stotra contains nothing less than the essence of Vedanta. In 10 shlokas, Bhagavatpadacharya has comprised or has concealed everything that a sadhaka would need to know in order to properly understand the teachings of the Upanishads. So for this as well, Sureshwaracharya has written a Vyakhya. This Vyakhya is in the form of shlokas. Vartikas, all the Vartikas that Sureshwaracharya penned were in the form of shlokas. So this forms the corpus of the literature that Sureshwaracharya gave us. And it is also noteworthy that later on, as many other Advaita gurus wrote many works, such as Appaya Dikshitendra, Madhusudana Saraswati, they all understood the heart of Shankaracharya's teachings and explained it in many ways, such that all kinds of sadhakas would be able to understand it. Sureshwaracharya, while also doing the same, stayed very close to the intent of Bhagavad Pada. So many Advaita Vidya gurus understood what Bhagavad Pada told and taught it in different ways. However, Sureshwaracharya ensured that the style of teaching as well did not deviate from what Bhagavad Pada had told in the Bhashyas. And as we said, in many places, he also gives us clarifications regarding what Bhagavad Pada meant. To give one example, in the Brihadaranyaka there is one section called the Antaryami Brahmana that discusses how Paramatma created this Jagat and then pervaded the Jagat and controls it from within. That is the literal meaning of the word Antaryami. Someone who controls from within is an Antaryami. Yaf Prithivyam Antaraha, Yam Prithivye Naveda, such statements are found there. He who residing within Prithivi controls Prithivi, but he who is not known by Prithivi. In such statements, the nature of Paramatma as the Antaryami has been discussed. There, while writing the Bhashya, Bhagavad Pada tells us who this Antaryami is and says, Sa Antaryami Narayanaha. Bhagavad Pada's Ishtadevata was Narayana. That is very clear from his Bhashyas. Immediately this gives ground for some people who have misunderstood the text to say, Bhagavad Pada therefore considered only Vishnu as Paramatma, not Shiva, Devi or Ganesha. So this is one misconception that might come if you look at the Bhashya. Sureshwaracharya has recognized this and very neatly there has written a Vartika there. Yaf Prithivyam iti Ishaha Ishosau Antaryami Jagadguru Harir Brahma Pinaki iti Bahudha Ekopi Giyate. It is resoundingly clear here. Narayana is Ishvara. That Ishvara, Harihi, he is sometimes called as Hari. Brahma, he is sometimes called as Brahma. Pinaki, he is sometimes called as Shiva, who has the Pinaka Dhanus. So although that Ishvara is one, he has many names such as Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. We can also add later Shakti, Ganesha, Skanda. So in this way, wherever there might be a doubt cast upon Bhagavad Pada's Bhashya, Sureshwaracharya has very neatly explained it. Now, since we are pressed for time today, we will be looking mainly at the Manasollasa. It is a short text comprising of only about 180 so shlokas, all in the Anushtup Chandas, which itself is a very small shloka. It is in this text that we find the very famous Prarthana, Ishvaro Gurur Atmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. This verse was written by Sureshwaracharya. Many people tell it to this day. It is very popular today, but not many people know that it was the first Peethadhipati of this Peetha, that it was Sureshwaracharya who has written this shloka. So in this Manasollasa, we will not be going in order because I want to cover a certain set of shlokas, but Sureshwaracharya very nicely gives us similes. Upamanas are given wherever there might be some complication in understanding a particular concept. There Sureshwaracharya gives us similes such that we no longer have confusion towards that concept. So first of all, why did Bhagavad Pada write Dakshinamurti Stotra? This is the first question that has to be answered. In the case of any text also, in the Anubandha Chatushtaya, that one must understand before going into the text, the Prayojana is one element that has to be understood. Why is this text being written? So there, Sureshwaracharya writes, Atmalabhat parolabha nasti iti munayo viduhu. There is no greater prayojana, there is no greater thing that can be attained than Atmajnana. The highest goal of this human life is moksha, which can only be obtained through jnana. So the obtainment of one's own self, the realization of the Atma, is the highest labha. It is the highest goal that one can achieve. Therefore, tallabhartham kavistauti atmanam parameshwaram. Therefore, to obtain this Atma Jnana, Kavihi, the person who has written this text, that is Shankaracharya, has praised Parameshwara, who is no different from his own Atma. Tallabhartham kavistauti atmanam parameshwaram. So it is also shown here that the Granthakarta of the Dakshinamurti Stotra has prayed to Paramatma not as some separate entity, but that entity who is his own Atma, his own soul. So then we get this question, who is this Parameshwara that is being praised through this Stotra? We have said that for the sake of obtaining Atmajnana, we are praising Paramatma. Who is Paramatma and what is his nature? Sureshwaracharya there clarifies that Svechhaya srishtam avishya vishvam yo manasisthitaha stotrena stuyatenena sa eva parameshwaraha. So Paramatma's definition, Ishvara, the definition of Ishvara in Vedanta is very simple. That entity who is omniscient and omnipotent. He is Sarvajna and Sarvashakta, and he alone is responsible for the Srishti Sthiti Layas, for the creation, sustenance and dissolution of this entire cosmos. Yaha Srishtam Vishwam Avishya. He alone has created this Vishwa, this Jagat, and he alone has pervaded it as well. Not only has he pervaded it, but he has taken upon one more form as the Jiva. Yo manasisthitaha. So, Srishtam Avishya refers to Paramatma as the Antaryami. Srishtam Vishwam, the fact that the Jagat was created means it is Paramatma alone who has created it. So, Paramatma is that entity who has created the Jagat, who has pervaded the Jagat, and not just this, Manasisthitaha, as the Jiva, he is situated in the heart as well. Now immediately we will get the doubt. How can Paramatma be the Jiva? This is the standard doubt that everyone gets when dealing with Advaita. How can Paramatma be the Jiva? We have just said that Paramatma is omnipotent and omniscient. He knows everything and he is capable of anything. The Jiva is very limited in his knowledge as well as very limited in his capability. How can these two entities be the same? How can someone that is poor and someone that is rich be the same entity? This cannot happen. So how is this possible? Here, we must understand what it means when we say that Paramatma appears as the Jiva or Paramatma becomes the Jiva. One important school within Advaita is the school of Vivarana, that is to say the stream of Padmapadacharya. Therein, the Siddhanta is something called Bimbeshwaravada. We will just quickly look at what that is. Ishvara alone exists. Ishvara's nature is Chaitanya. Ishvara is of the nature of consciousness and he alone exists. His Shakti, his potency is known as Maya. This Maya is responsible for creating this entire Jagat. When through the course of this Maya, the Antahkaranas of Jivas are also created. That is to say the minds are also created. When Ishvara's Chaitanya is reflected in the mind, the reflection of Ishvara in the mind is called the Jiva. So Ishvara is the main entity. The reflection of Ishvara in the mind is termed as the Jiva. So now when we say Ishvara has also acted as the Jiva, it is similar to saying that the sun has become the reflection within a pot of water. It is not that Ishvara has become limited. It is not that Ishvara is bound by Maya. It is not that Ishvara has lost his power. Ishvara, while remaining omnipotent and omniscient, also is reflected in the mind. That reflection is called the Jiva. And it is the Shastric standpoint that the reflection is not separate from the entity that is reflected. So, this is slightly complicated. Therefore, Sureshwaracharya gives us a neat simile to help us understand this. Yatha salilam avishya bahuda bhati bhaskaraha tatha shariranyavishya bahudha sphurat ishvaraha. Just as there is only one sun who is the source of all light on the planet Earth, there is only one source of light, which is the sun. So this sun becomes reflected in many pots of water. Salilam avishya, having entered the water, bahudha bhati, the sun appears to have become manifold. In the same way, sharirani avishya, having entered the bodies. So when we hear the word body, we immediately think it is this physical body. In Vedanta, the body is the body and the mind. The sthula sharira and the sukshma sharira combined have to be understood. So having entered the body, being reflected therein, Paramatma, although one, appears as many jivas therein. This is exactly what Krishna Paramatma has also told in the Gita. Kshetrajnanchapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. The body is called the kshetra. The jiva who resides within the body is called the kshetrajna, and it is Paramatma alone who exists as the kshetrajna within each body. He is reflected as the kshetrajna within each jiva. So now we can clearly see how, although Paramatma remains singular in nature, although he is Sarvajna and Sarvashakta, how this Paramatma can be reflected to become many jivas and appear as so many entities. Then we get the question, jivas are bound. Jivas experience the fruits of their karma, they experience sukha and dukkha, they perform activities and they experience the fruits of that action. If it is Parameshwara who has appeared as the jivas, does he also have to experience the fruits of the sukha and of the punya and papa that the jiva commits? Is Parameshwara also bound by worldly activity? Clearly Paramatma is never bound because he is Nissanga, Mukta Sangha. Paramatma also says in Gita, Namam karmani limpanti. I am untouched by karma. How is this possible? There again one more simile is given, continuing with the sun and the water. Yatha pranikritayir arkaha karmabhihi naiva badhyate tatha manahkritayir atma sakshitvat naiva lipyate, naiva badhyate. So, due to the light of the sun, many entities do many things. Someone who gives charity also gives that charity in the light of the sun. Someone who commits a robbery also commits that robbery in the light of the sun. For a plant to grow, the cause is also the light of the sun. For water to be evaporated, the cause of that is also the light of the sun. So, although many actions happen due to the light of the sun, but yet the sun remains unaffected by any of this. So too, Ishvara remains the reason due to which all of this happens. But yet, because he is separate from all of this at the same time, he remains untouched by the fruits of punya and papa that the jivas have to experience. Why do the jivas have to experience it? Because the jiva is bound by the manas. That is why neatly the Vartikacharya has written, Manahkriteh karmabhihi. The karma is not done by Ishvara's reflection. The karma is done by the buddhi. The karta and the bhokta of all karmas is the buddhi. It is because the jiva has identified himself with the mind and the body that he ends up becoming bound to it and having to experience the results of his actions. Otherwise, the reflection is in nature that of the root source. So, in the same way, we will see that also explained later on. So, when this is the case, then what do we mean when we say that the Jivatma and Paramatma attain Aikya? So, the reflection is separate, Paramatma is separate. How can these two be the same? Because it is one thing to say that when a Jnani gets moksha, he merges into Ishvara. This is one thing. Even before moksha as well, the Jiva and Ishvara in nature are the same. As Chaitanya, they are the same. Their capabilities are different. Just as the sun has the capability to illuminate the entire cosmos. However, the reflection of the sun in a mirror does not have that capability. Then, how can these two be the same? During Srishti, during the time where the Jiva is still bound, how can we say that the Jiva is still not different from Ishvara? There, Sureshwaracharya very nicely writes, Aishwaryam Ishwaratvam hi, tasya nasti prithak sthitihi. So when we say that the Jiva and Ishvara are not different during Vyavahara, we mean that the Jiva does not have prithak sthiti from Ishvara. Just as a reflection of the sun cannot exist independently from the sun, so too the Jiva cannot exist independently from Ishvara. What do we mean by independent existence? The reflection does not exist before the reflected object and then somehow become attached to the object that is reflected. The reflection at all times is beholden to the nature of the reflected object. If the reflected object is tall, the reflection will also be tall. If the reflected object is white, the reflection will also be white. If the reflected object is round, the reflection will also be round. There is no point in time wherein the reflection can independently decide what its nature will be. It is always beholden to the nature of the object that is reflected. In the same way, the Jiva too is always beholden to that entity of which it is a reflection of. So, just as the reflection of the sun is no different from the sun, so too we say that the Jiva is no different from Ishvara. And it follows that when the mirror is removed, where does the reflection go? We all look at a mirror every day. We use a mirror also every day to great effect. But never do we wonder that after I have finished looking at my face in the mirror, where does that reflection go? This is something that we never think about, usually because we are done using the mirror. But it is the Vedanti who knows the answer to this question. He knows that once the upadhi is removed, that is the reflecting medium. So for the reflection to happen, you need a medium to happen. Some water is needed or a mirror is needed. The reflecting medium, when that medium is removed, the reflection also goes. Where does that reflection go? The Shastric response is that the reflection merges into the original entity. In the same way, once the manas is removed, then the Jiva attains unity with Ishvara, which is why later in the Manasollasa Grantha, Sureshwaracharya says, Nirvishayam yasya manaha saha jivan muktaha. He whose mind has been made void of all objects, he is a Jivan Mukta. So in this way, the Jiva and Ishvara can become one. How do we know that it is Ishvara who has appeared as the Jiva? We are saying that the Jiva is a reflection of Ishvara, but what is the proof of this? Sureshwaracharya shows us one yukti. So in Shastra, it is not enough to just quote some Vedavakya somewhere. You also have to show some supporting logic. This logic should not be contrary to Shastra, but it should be in line with Shastra. It is why Bhagavat-pada also says, Shrutimatas tarko sandhiyatam. So such tarkas also have to be shown. Here Sureshwaracharya tells us that Jnana kriye shivena aikyat sankrante sarvajantushu. There are two unique capabilities that all living beings have. Jnana and kriya. They have the ability to cognize objects, the ability to know things, and kriya. They have the unique capability to decide to act. These two facets or these two capabilities are there only where there is Chaitanya. Jadapadarthas, insentient, inert objects do not have these two qualities. They are incapable of knowing anything. They are incapable of will, the decision to act. These two qualities are unique to Chaitanya. So, we see that every living being, humans, animals, birds, insects, they all have the capacity to know, they all have the capacity to act. So, what is Kriya? Here, Sureshwaracharya writes, Kriyanama Pratispanda Parinama Swarupini. The ability to react to something. When you have to have a Pratispanda. When something happens in our environment, the ability to react to that, to have some response to that is Kriya. This and Jnana, these are there only where there is Chaitanya. All living beings have this. All animals have this, all birds have this, all insects have this. All of this must have come from a singular source. That singular source in every being is Chaitanya. This Chaitanya belongs to Ishvara. It is because Ishvara is of the nature of Chaitanya, and it is because it is one Ishvara that is reflected in all of these minds as the Jivas, that all the Jivas too have the ability to think and to act, to know and to will. So in this way, Sureshwaracharya has shown that because knowing and acting are common to all beings, therefore it follows that there should be one cause for all of this. If there is light in this room, there is also light. If there is light in Asia, there is light in Africa, and there is light in South America. It follows that the cause for that light should be one. In the same way, if all Jivas can know, will and act, the cause for that should be one. That singular cause is Chaitanya, that root Chaitanya is Ishvara. So all Jivas, Sarva Jantushu, Shivena Aikyat, due to that unity with Paramatma, Jnana Kriye Sankrante, knowledge and action are there in all Jivas due to this. So then we get one more question. You are saying that Paramatma is Chaitanya. Paramatma's Swarupa is Sachidananda. Now you are saying the Chaitanya of Paramatma is reflected everywhere. whenever we say of, there are always two separate objects. The house of this person, the entity is different and the house is different. The car of this person, the car is different, the entity is different. So if we say the Chaitanya of Paramatma, that means that Paramatma is separate, Chaitanya is separate. There are some Dvaitic philosophies do indeed subscribe to this. Nat vasavanandaha kintu anandi ayam. He is not Ananda, he has Ananda. He is not Jnana, he has Jnana. Some people, some Dvaitic standpoint describe Paramatma like this. However, in the Advaitic school of thought, because the Veda itself says Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. It does not say Jnanavan Brahma, it says Jnanam Brahma. So when Paramatma is Chaitanya, how do we say Paramatma's Chaitanya? There, in Shastra, there is one term called Upacharika Bheda. That is to say, Bheda is used only for namesake. There is no actual Bheda, but for the sake of discussing that object, we will speak as though there is Bheda. So everywhere in Shastra, to give an example, there are mainly two examples that you will see everywhere. Rahosharaha Vyakaranasya Sutram. These two examples are given everywhere. The head of Rahu. Rahu is a head, there is no body. When Vishnu cut his head off, the head became Rahu, the body became Ketu. How do we say Rahu's head? Because there is nothing else besides the head in Rahu. So Rahu is a head. But even so, when we describe that as an entity, we say Rahu. When we describe it as a body part, we say head. So we say Rahu's head. In the same way, Vyakaranasya Sutram. The Vyakarana Shastra itself is made up of sutras. But yet we say a sutra of Vyakarana. Although the sutra itself is Vyakarana. So these two examples are given everywhere. We have never seen Rahu. Most of us have also not read Vyakarana. So then how do we understand this? Here Sureshwaracharya gives us more examples that are used in day-to-day transaction. Raho Shiraha is one example that he gives. Raho Shiraha Sushihi Khasya Swasyatma Pratima Vapuho Ityadi Kalpana Tulya Na Prithagvastu Gochara, he says. Raho Shiraha, this is common. Then Sushihi Khasya, the emptiness of space. Space itself means something that is empty. But yet we say the emptiness of space. In the same way, Swasya Atma, one's own self. One's own self. One is the self, but yet we say one's own self. My own self. The self is the person who is speaking. But yet he says Swasya Atma. And then one more is there. Pratima Vapuhu. Some Vigraha, some sculpture is there. The body of the statue. What is a statue? A likeness of some body. Some Devata is there. Vishnu is there. So the sculptor has made a Vigraha with 4 hands and Shankachakra Gada Padma. That is Vishnu's body. Then we say the body of the Vigraha. What is the Vigraha if not the body of that? So there too we say the body of the sculpture. So there too we see that although it is only one entity, we are using a possessive nature when discussing it. So in this way, so too do we say the Chaitanya of Paramatma. Although Paramatma is Chaitanya, we say the Chaitanya of Paramatma. So these are various yuktis that Sureshwaracharya has shown. Then we say, this is all very fine. So due to Maya, all of this has happened. How do we remove Maya? How is it that we can come out from Maya? Sureshwaracharya, before discussing the 9th shloka, Bhorambhamsinalo Nilambara Maharnatho Himamshuf Puman, wherein there Bhagavad-pada tells us that the Ashtamurti of Shiva, the Panchabhutas, Surya and Chandra and the Jiva, these are the 8 forms of Shiva, aside from which there is nothing else. There is nothing else in this cosmos aside from the Panchabhutas, the Jiva and Surya Chandra. The Jiva means Chaitanya. There is nothing else other than this. So here, Sureshwaracharya writes that the reason why this is being told is Upasana of Ishvara is one of the most important paths to getting moksha. Because even Bhagavan says in Gita, Daivi Hyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. This Maya that I wield is incredibly difficult to overcome. How can it be overcome? Mameva ye prapadyante Maya metam tarantite. Those who seek refuge in me, in due course of time, will be able to cross over that Maya. Because the nature of bhakti towards Paramatma is not just serving Paramatma. you have to know Paramatma as well. Which is why in Gita also Bhagavan says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yascha asmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tadanantram. What is the goal of bhakti? Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yascha asmi tattvataha. He will understand my true reality and tataha vishate. Thereafter he will enter me. Bhagavan is very clear about this. Therefore, in Advaita especially, even more so than other philosophies, in Advaita the worship of Ishvara is even more important. In other philosophies, the Jiva is still separate from Ishvara. However, it is only in Advaita that we can say, Nanyat kinchana vidyate vimrishatam. There is nothing other than Ishvara. Every other philosophy will have to say, Ishvara exists. Besides Ishvara, the Jiva exists. Ishvara exists. Outside from Ishvara, the Jagat and the Jiva are also there. It is only Advaita which has given Ishvara such a high sthana that even the Jagat and the Jiva do not exist outside of Ishvara. There is nothing that truly exists like Ishvara. In all other philosophies, the Jiva and Ishvara have an equal status. Their satta, the status of their existence is the same. It is only in Advaita where we say Ishvara is even above the Jiva in this nature. Ishvara is greater than the Jiva because it is Ishvara who appears as the Jagat, it is Ishvara who appears as the Jiva, and it is Ishvara who is controlling both. So this nature of Ishvara, this position that is given to Ishvara, that is there in Advaita, is the highest position that is given to Ishvara across all philosophies of Sanatana Dharma. Whether it be any of the darshanas or even the Vedantic folds within the various sampradayas of Vedanta, no other sampradaya of Vedanta has given Ishvara such a high sthana. So when Bhagavan also says Vasudeva Sarvamiti, everyone else has to say Vasudeva is everything besides the Jagat and the Jiva. Only the Advaita can say Vasudeva is everything including the Jagat and the Jiva. So keeping this nature of Ishvara in mind, Sureshwaracharya gives us a list of what all we have to do if we wish to overcome Maya and obtain moksha. Shrutyacharya prasadena yogabhyasa vashena cha ishvaropasanenapi swatmabodho yada bhavet. Shruti acharya prasadena, Shruti prasadena, through study of the Upanishads, we have to obtain the anugraha of the Upanishads as well. Because even the Upanishad tells, Yame Vaisha Vrunate, Tena Labhyaha. Jnana has to choose the seeker that it comes to. For that, the seeker has to do his sadhana. So the anugraha of Vedamata is needed. And of course, Acharya Prasadena, the anugraha of the Guru is needed. Yoga Abhyasa Vashena cha. It is not enough to keep doing namaskara every day. The sadhaka too has to put forth his own efforts in controlling his mind. The control of the mind, the chittavritti nirodha is yoga. The ability to control the mind, make it focus single-pointedly on the Atma, and thereby transcend the mind as well is yoga. So the practice of yoga as well. And last but not least, Ishvaropasanenapi. The worship of Ishvara. The constant worship of Ishvara. Because Upasana, Bhagavad Pada writes in the Taittiriya Bhashya that Upasana does not just mean doing namaskara every now and then. A constant remembrance of Ishvara. Avichinna pratyaya santati. Anantarita pratyaya santati. A constant remembrance of Ishvara is Upasana. So that sort of a worship, smarana and contemplation of Ishvara is very much needed. Then one will get Atma Jnana. So before taking leave, we will discuss one last thing. Here, Sureshwaracharya has said that Shruti Prasada is needed. The Anugraha of the Vedas, a proper understanding of the Vedas is needed if we wish to get Atma Jnana. One more common misconception that many people have about Vedanta is that if Vedantins say that everything is mithya, then the Vedas are also mithya. If the Vedas are also mithya, it means that they are false. If the Vedas are also false, then how can they give you true knowledge? If the Vedas are real, then they cannot be mithya. If they are mithya, then they cannot give you knowledge. Therefore, you cannot say that Jagan mithyata. You cannot say that the prapancha is mithya. This is one often repeated and very common misconception that many people have. Here, however, this stems from a misunderstanding of what mithya means. Mithya refers to something that exists temporarily. This is one definition. One more definition is that which goes only after you realize its true nature. This is also one definition of mithya. So now the question becomes, can something that is mithya give us a real result? That is the question. So first of all, mithya does not mean something that is wrong or false. This is the first correction that we need to have. So Veda is not wrong, Veda is not false. Veda is mithya means it is anitya. Because we see that in the beginning of the Srishti, Paramatma creates it out of his breath. During Pralaya, Paramatma dissolves it back. Which means that just as everything else in this Jagat, Utpatti and Laya are there for the Veda Shabda. Veda at the end of the day is a sound. So the quality of coming into existence and dissolving is there for Veda. This does not mean that Veda is somehow wrong. When we say that this Jagat is also mithya, we don't mean that the sun will stop rising tomorrow if the sun is mithya. The sun will continue to rise. And the day and night will proceed without interruption. But it is still mithya. Mithya means it is vyavahara. As far as transaction is concerned, it is real. Is it permanent? No. Mithya means something that exists but isn't permanent. So too the Vedas. Now the question becomes, can this still generate a permanent result? So if we say that mithya now means impermanent, then can it generate a permanent result? Or can something that is mithya generate a satya phala? The answer is a resounding yes. For that, Sureshwaracharya gives us a very clear example, or many clear examples. Mithya bhutopi vedantaha satyamartham prabodhayet. Although the Upanishad is technically mithya, it is still very much capable of telling us about the entity, the artha that is satya, which is Paramatma. How is this possible? Do we see anywhere else that a mithya padartha gives us real knowledge? So, although there is only one paramarthika object, so we cannot show a vyavaharika object that teaches about a paramarthika object, but as an example, we can show a pratibhasika object that teaches about a vyavaharika object. So we all know these three levels. So Vyavaharika is that which will go only with Brahmajnana. Pratibhasika is that which, if we understand what is there, that Bhranti also will go. So such examples are given wherein Devata Pratimavacha Chitravat Pratibimbavat. These three examples are given. Like the Vigraha of a Devata, like a painting, and like a reflection. All of these are cases in which something of a lower, less permanent gives knowledge about something that is more permanent. So the first example that is given is a Devata Pratima. Every day we will all sit in front of one Vigraha. This Vigraha, some Panchaloha Vigraha, this Panchaloha Vigraha was made at some point by some Shilpi. So he has taken all the metals, molded it and made it into a Vigraha. So this Vigraha that has just now been made is certainly not the Srishti Sthiti Laya Paramatma, Karta Paramatma. Even so, this Vigraha, when worshipped, is giving us the Anugraha of that Paramatma. So Paramatma is more permanent than the Vigraha. But the worship of the Vigraha is giving us the fruit of worshipping Paramatma. This is one example. One more example is Devata Pratimavacha Chitravata. When we see a picture of a tiger, we get scared. Our heart rate goes up, we start sweating, we start shivering. That is not a real tiger, but our sweat, our shaking, our shivering, our fear is real. So, an unreal tiger is able to generate a real reaction of fear in us. This is one more example. Now, let this be. The third example is perhaps the best example because it connects back to the nature of Bimba Pratibimba that we discussed in the beginning. Bimbavata. When we see a reflection, the reflection is not the reflected object. Right? If that was the case, poking the mirror would cause pain to our face. So clearly the reflection is different, the face is different. Even so, we are able to know things about the face seeing the mirror. Whatever color the object is, we will know seeing the color of the reflection. Why do we use a mirror? We want to put some bottu right exactly between our eyebrows. How do we know where the middle of our eyebrows is? We have not, no human in this prapancha, in Bhuta Bhavishyat Vartamana Kalas, has ever seen what the middle of their eyebrows looks like. No one has ever seen this with their eyes. But yet, since our forefathers, everyone has been putting bottu in the middle of the eyebrows. This is possible only because we have found out where the middle of our eyebrows are by looking at the mirror. So, by looking at an unreal reflection, we have found out where the middle of our eyebrows really is. In the same way, although the Upanishads may be technically considered mithya, they still can very much teach us about the Paramarthika Satya, which is Paramatma and his true nature, and therefore are worthy of the greatest reverence and respect. So nowhere in this Siddhanta do we say that Vedas are not needed. Nowhere do we say that Ishvara is not needed. And nowhere do we say that the Guru is also not needed. Because we see here that one entity can become the Jiva and Paramatma. The same Paramatma can act also as the Jiva. That is what Bhagavad-pada has also said. Srishyacharya Taya Tathaiva Pitruputradhyatmana Bhedataha. Which is why Sureshwaracharya neatly writes there also. Guru Shishya Kramenapi Swami Bhrityadi Rupena Kriyadati Svechaya Ishvaraha. So clearly it is one Ishvara who is taking upon all of these roles and carrying on this Leela, that is the Prapancha. So this being the case, we must be very grateful to the Vartikacharya who, as we have seen in this short span of time, very complicated topics. How the Jiva is Ishvara but still different from Ishvara. What the nature of attaining unity with Ishvara is. How something that is mithya can still give us a real result. All these topics that otherwise would have been very complicated, that Bhagavad-pada has told in a very shortened form through stotras and also in other places in the Bhashya, through his impeccable clarifications, through the great clarity of writing that is there. The Vartikacharya has made it very easy for us to understand what Bhagavad-pada has actually meant. So, the greatest contribution of Vartikacharya to Sanatana Dharma is that he has given us a clear understanding of Bhagavad-pada's writings, teachings. He has also given us an unbroken continuation of Bhagavad-pada's parampara. So, it is because he not only understood what Bhagavad-pada taught, but his goal for Sanatana Dharma was the same goal that Bhagavad-pada had. So, when Bhagavad-pada established this Pitha, it was for one purpose alone. It was for the sake that whatever dharma karyas that Bhagavad-pada did in his time, making sure that there is sattvic worship of Bhagavan in Devalayas across this country, making sure that there is astikya in the hearts of all the residents of India, making sure that Vedanta remains clear for everyone, making sure that no one gives the wrong meanings for the Upanishads. All of this forms what Bhagavad-pada did for Sanatana Dharma then. To ensure that that remains to be the situation to this day, Bhagavad-pada ensured that 4 pithas were set up. And in the first pitha that he set up, he selected the foremost of his Shishyas, who also carried out the same vision of his Guru without a dot. Which is why, although we say that the Shishya and the Guru, they are part of an unbroken parampara, that the heart of the Guru is seen in the Shishya, until now we have seen many nice similes, upamanas, through which the Vartikacharya has made us understand many things. Perhaps there is no better upamana that the Vartikacharya has given for himself. So in his Vartikas, while doing Namaskara to Bhagavad-pada, he writes, Ashaila dudayat tathasta girito bhasvad yashorashmibhi vyaptam vishvam anandhakaram abhavad yasyasma shishyayiridam Arat jnanagabhastibhih pratihatash chandrayate bhaskaraha tasmai shankarabhanave tanu mano vagbhihi namaha stat sada. I do namaskara to my Guru Shankaracharya, both physically, with my speech, and also with my heart. What is the nature of the relationship between myself, his Shishya, and Bhagavad-pada? It is not even necessary that my Guru has to come forth for the sake of Ajnana to go away. It is enough if his Prakasha itself goes. The sun does not have to come and sit on the earth for the darkness to go. The sun, it is 93 million miles away. But it sends its light. The sun does not move to the earth. But the sun sends its rays of light, and that itself is enough to get rid of so much tamas. Eko varisha bandhavaha pratidinam kshitinabho vyaptam tamomandalam bhitva. One sun is enough to get rid of the entire darkness that envelopes the entire sky. So if that is the nature of the sun, then in front of my Guru, who is the sun? Jnana gabhastibhih pratihataha chandrayate bhaskaraha. In front of the splendor of my Guru's jnana, even the sun becomes like the moon. That is how great my Guru is. How much pride must a Shishya have to be able to say this about his Guru? So, if my Guru is so effulgent that even the sun looks like the moon in front of him, if the sun is able to get rid of so much darkness, how much more darkness must my Guru be able to get rid of? So he says, Sva Yasho Rashmibhi. My Guru does not have to come forth. The prakasha of his fame itself, his Yasho Rashmi, the light of his kirti itself is enough for Ashaila Dudhayat Tathastagiritaha Vyaptam Anandhakaram Abhavat. From the mountain upon where the sun rises until the mountain upon where the sun sets, from shore to shore of India, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, this entire India has become full of the light of Vedanta because of not even my Guru, his light. Not even the Guru, his light. What is the nature of his light? My Guru's yashas takes form as his shishyas. So it is not even that we have some great samarthya of our own. It is not that we have some great capability of our own. The rays of the sun do not have independent capacity aside from that which the sun gives it. But it is enough that we, who are like the rays of the sun of our Guru, are enough to ensure that the four corners of India remain effulgent with the knowledge of Sanatana Dharma to this day, remain vibrant with the tradition of Sanatana Dharma to this day, and it is therefore that the Shishya Parampara of Bhagavad Pada has been put in the four corners of India, in the four Amnaya Pithas. So, the best example to give, or the best simile to give, to describe the relationship between Bhagavad Pada and Sureshwaracharya is the relationship between the sun and the sunlight. Now, to summarize it from our standpoint, the sun and sunlight are not different. There is no difference between fire and its light, between fire and its heat. There is no difference between the sun and its light. Therefore, for us as Shishyas of Sureshwaracharya, it is Sureshwaracharya's humility that he has said, I am only a ray of light from my Guru who is like the sun. But as Shishyas of that Sureshwaracharya also, and of the Avichinna Guru Parampara that has come from Sureshwaracharya, we can proudly say that sunlight and the sun are not separate. What is the sun if not for light? So, it is one Guru Murti who is, as he said, Ishvaro Guru Atmeti, that one Ishvara, one Paramatma, who appears as Ishvara, as the Guru and the Atma, who has appeared as Shankara Bhagavad Padacharya, who established the four Pithas. He alone has again appeared as Sureshwaracharya, who was the first Pithadipati from whom such a Guru Parampara has continued and for whom this shloka holds true to this day. So, we must remain eternally grateful to that Guru Parampara and to the first Guru of that Guru Parampara, that we are able to enjoy the benefits of that knowledge, that tradition and that sampradaya to this day. So, the reason why we do Sureshwaracharya Jayanti every year is not that Sureshwaracharya gets something from this. It is us. We owe everything that we have to that Acharya and to the Parampara of that Acharya. So, offering our repeated namaskaras to that Vartikacharya and offering our namaskaras to the Jagadgurus whom we say today as their very embodiments. And once again offering my namaskaras to the Jagadgurus by whose grace I have been able to speak what little I have been able to tell in this bhashana. I rest my speech for this day. Ityesha Vangme Puja Shrimat Shankarapadayur Arpita Tena Deveshah Priyatam Me Sadashivah Jagad Janmadi Lakshyaya Svecha Svikritamurtaye Vidhvastakhila Heyaya Shri Nrisimhaya Mangalam.
ಇಷ್ಟು ಹೊತ್ತು ಜಗದ್ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಸುರೇಶ್ವರಾಚಾರ್ಯರ ಮಾನಸೋಲ್ಲಾಸ ಅಂದರೆ ಜಗದ್ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಶಂಕರಾಚಾರ್ಯರು ಬರೆದ ದಕ್ಷಿಣಾಮೂರ್ತಿ ಸ್ತೋತ್ರದ ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯಾನ ಮಾನಸೋಲ್ಲಾಸ. ಆ ಮಾನಸೋಲ್ಲಾಸದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೃದಯಂಗಮವಾಗಿ ಆಂಗ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದಂತಹ ಶ್ರೀ ಗನ್ನವರಂ ಲಲಿತಾದಿತ್ಯ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಅವರು ಈಗ ಶ್ರೀ ಶ್ರೀ ಜಗದ್ಗುರು ಮಹಾಸ್ವಾಮಿಗಳವರಿಂದ ಈ ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದವನ್ನು ಪಡೆಯಬೇಕಾಗಿ ಕೋರುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಇವಾಗ
ಅಂತಹ ಮಹಾಪುರುಷರು ಜಗದ್ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಸುರೇಶ್ವರಾಚಾರ್ಯರು ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಜಯಂತಿ ಮಹೋತ್ಸವ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದಿವಸ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರಿಂದ ಪ್ರವಚನವೂ ಸಹ ಇವತ್ತು ಆಯಿತು. ಗನ್ನವರಂ ಶತಾವಧಾನಿ, ಗನ್ನವರಂ ಲಲಿತಾದಿತ್ಯ ಅವರಿಂದ ಇವತ್ತು ವಿಸ್ತಾರವಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರವಚನವಾಯಿತು. ಅನೇಕ ವಿಧವಂತಹ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ಅವರು ಮಾನಸೋಲ್ಲಾಸ ಗ್ರಂಥದಲ್ಲಿ ಸುರೇಶ್ವರಾಚಾರ್ಯರು ಹೇಳಿದಂತಹ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷಣದ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಸಂತೋಷಕರವಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಈ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ.